Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
I've got Ricardo Sunderland online. Ricardo, how are you?
I'm doing great, Michael. Good to see you and looking forward to this conversation.
Great to have you. So why don't you share a little bit about you and then we'll jump into this conversation.
Thank you. I'm a partner at Egan Zender. We are a prominent leadership advisory firm. I've been the coach to the most senior leaders of the largest and recognizable organizations in the world over the past decade. It's my passion, my calling, and that's why I wrote the book, The Energy Advantage, How to Go from Managing Your Time to Mastering Your Energy. It's, I guess, my intention to pay it forward and being able to share what I learned in the intimacy of coaching all these big people and make the topic even more accessible and credible to your audience and to the readers.
Energy is a big thing. It's something that I accidentally discovered for myself several years ago where, it was really good as far as, scheduling how I did my time and things that I worked on, the most important tasks, all the things that we've been taught in a variety of different formats. But what I discovered was there was certain times of the day where it just was a misalignment, or I just did not have the energy to do certain tasks or take on initiatives or have a difficult phone call or things like that, where I thought, okay, maybe if I would have done this earlier when I felt more alert. And it's not about being alert or having the caffeine kick into it either. It's just your body's natural ability to be able to do the things you need to do and understanding how your body and your mind works. And when you figure that out, and again, this was all just self-discovery. I didn't research anything on it. I was just more or less just kind of getting a better understanding of myself. It helped me figure out, okay, I am better at doing analytical type work or research or spreadsheet work or whatever it happens to be in the morning. Just naturally better. Afternoon is better for conversations and planning and thinking about things and daydreaming or whatever the situation is. And that's for me. Other people are different. And we discovered too during the pandemic where a lot of people were working later in the evening than they normally would because of taking care of their kids or whatever the situation may have been. And they discovered how productive they were later on in the evening than they were in the morning. So it makes a ton of sense. And when leaders, and you said this in the pre-show, and I want to make sure that you say it again, because you basically have been on a European roadshow for a little bit, and you made a comment about being hopeful about some of the feedback that you got from leaders when it comes to energy and all of that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because when you said it, I thought it gave me renewed hope as well, because right now in the world, it just seems like organizations are struggling with retention. Their people are disgruntled. There's just this communication gap going on. But I think if we get the energy right, I think that'll fix a lot of it.
Yeah, it's essential to be able to follow your energy, to learn how to follow your energy. How to learn how to follow your energy is tricky. You first really need to know what gives you energy. What happens when you're in moments of bliss, when you're experiencing fulfillment. And sometimes we just are not aware. Many of the clients that I work with, they're not necessarily that conscious about it. Especially, they're not that conscious on what takes energy away. When you're sad, when you're angry, when you feel guilty, even ashamed, these are emotions that if you're not clear when you're feeling them, you can have all this leakage of energy, and then it's very difficult to really understand what parts of the day you need to schedule, giving energy moments, and when you allow for taking energy moments. All these leaders that I work with have moments where it comes with the territory. They have to accept that there's going to be moments of the day where they're not necessarily going to get energy from all the conversations that they're having, But it's important to know if they're going to have an energy giving day or an energy taking day or an energy taking morning and then compensate with an energy giving afternoon. How to be able to schedule this intentionally allows for you to be able to increase not just levels of resiliency, but clarity of mind in order for you to be able to resolve the complex problems that many of my clients have. Connecting it to what you just said, I mean, I just experienced being, because we launched the book in just on June 4th, and I had the opportunity to go straight away to a roadshow in Europe, 6 cities. I met 250 leaders of various complex organizations in between Madrid, Paris, Zurich, Basel, Milan, and Berlin. And I'm very happy to report that with very counted exceptions, there were no skeptics in the room. These were people that were beyond the why, and they were really curious on the how. How can I be able to then integrate what appears to be this, development part of my life where I, try to procure energy and I compartmentalize at home, where in reality, I should be the same person at work than at home. At work, they've come from a place where they believe that the physical and the mental energy has to have priority, and then the emotional energy, it's at home. You need that. You need to integrate both the thinking and the doing to the feeling and the being in order to be able to survive and thrive and be fulfilled at the same time in the corporate context, especially with these very large and complex responsibilities. So I'm very happy to report that I'm coming back very hopeful, very sophisticated questions. These guys really work very curious into trying to create this bridge on, again, connecting the thinking and the doing to the feeling and the being in the workplace, which is very much needed in the world right now. Yeah.
Agreed. And like I said, it's given me hope as well that these leaders are, really leaning in and to understand more on how to do the how, quite
Yeah.
frankly. And, for years, we can go back to Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why, and great book, and, gave a lot of insights to things that help leaders with organizations and to figure out, okay, what is your why? Because again, many individuals and unfortunately many companies either forgot what their why is or they never knew it in the first place. But now we're in a place where I think a lot of people and organizations in particular, they know their why, but now it's the how. And I've hammered this home, with the work that I've done with individuals and teams that deal with burnout and all of that, is sometimes you have to return back to your why to figure out, why you entered this role. Why did you take this job? Why did you launch this business? And then how do we go about rekindling those feelings and do it in such a way where, and one of the things that I work on with people is you're one entity, whether you're a company or a human, you're one person. Putting on a mask to go to work, and I'm not talking about the COVID masks, I'm talking about a mask to be somebody that you're not or somebody else. I said that's not doing you any favors, and it's not doing the company any favors, quite frankly, because you're actually robbing the company of who you really are. They want you as an individual to bring your gifts, your skills, your background, your insights, because you're the only one that has that. And you create an environment where people can thrive. Time and time again, I've seen organizations that are doing really well is they've created this incubator of an entity where people can truly be who they are and creative and thought-provoking and all of that. And they do some amazing work, and they're agile, they're adaptive, they can change as external circumstances change, but they stay constant in being able to just ebb and flow through things. And one of the things you mentioned too, briefly, was understanding your energy levels, whether it was a giving day or a taking day. And I had this, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a company that I was helping out, and this was a while back. where basically they had an indicator of, it was a signs like, what kind of day am I having? Am I having a good day or a bad day? It was something that was outside everybody's door, so they could actually, move the marker or the magnet over, saying, am I having a bad day, or am I having a so-so day, or a happy day, kind of thing. Where I think is, and I don't want to say this is silly, but it's one of those things where if you had that outside your door or on your Slack or whatever CRM system or tracking system you use, to say, what kind of day am I having? I'm having this day. If people know that, they're
Yeah.
going to approach you differently, and not to be rude, or not to be sarcastic towards you or anything like that. I mean, you may have the colleagues and coworkers they're going to pick on you no matter what. Those are fun to deal with, but ultimately, if I know that one of my employees is having a difficult day, understanding that's going to make me check myself first and go, okay, make sure that I present where I don't make it worse. Does this information that I'm about to present, is it going to make things easier for them or harder? Can it wait? But having that information and that transparency can really, keep tabs on what kind of energy day they're having,
Mhm.
whether, okay, they're ready to take on the world. Okay, let's tap that resource as far as bouncing off an idea or getting some input on something. Where if they're like, I'm dragging today, then you go, you know what? I'm going to go in there. I'm going to share some good news with them to hopefully lift them up a little bit. But
Yeah.
again, knowing that and having that part of the DNA of the organization, that's what's giving me hope based on what you've discovered in your conversations with a couple
Mhm.
hundred world leaders that are doing some amazing things in Europe. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and then we're going to segue into the book a little bit,
Sure.
specifically. eh, I always ask this of authors, a couple questions. One, what in the world made you want to give up so much of your life to write a book, because it's a time-consuming endeavor? And then
Yeah.
secondly, what part of the book really jumps out for you? And that's sometimes not an easy question to answer, because it's your
Mhm.
creation, your experiences and things like that. But like with me and the things that I've created in life, there's always something that I go, you know what, that one really, I'm really happy with. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I thank you. It's a beautiful question. I was with the first thought that comes to mind is I was with a client probably about a year before. It took me 3 years to write the book. About a year before, I was right in the middle of editing, which, as you know, it's quite sometimes can be quite frustrating. You learn tons, and you can see your product evolving in a better way if you have the right editors and the right agent, which I do. Um, when I explained what I was doing, she said, "Ricardo, that's a labor of love." And I really wasn't thinking about it that way. But when I heard it, it almost brought me into tears. And I really connected to um, that emotion when she shared it. It is a labor of love because I have my day-to-day work. I coach for a living, and I typically have around 15 to 20 coachees. You can't do really more than that at the level of play that I do. So that in itself takes you almost on a full-time job basis plus your life. Um, However, if you follow your energy, if you follow your passion, if you really connect to your purpose, my purpose in life is to help leaders connect to that energy and become better leaders. If we go deeper, is to elevating consciousness. So when 3 years ago, I started to hear many of my clients starting to say, "Where were you 20 years ago?" I started to connect to what if I could create someone for these aspiring leaders that now can learn what my clients are learning, and they're desiring where I was 20 years or 30 years ago, and they can start to shift their mindset and shift their energy and realize that we have unlimited energy and we only have 24 hours in the day. And if we can really manage that mindset shift, then you would have immense clarity of mind. You would be able to live a happier and thriving life. Um, and you will be able to be yourself anytime, anywhere. If you are able to go through through this process. So when you start to connect all these dots, then I would say when you desire something, Michael, which is intention, that, the intentionality, really the trick part is you need to accept the consequences that come with that desire. And there's a conscious and an unconscious acceptance. Consciously, you would say, maybe I was afraid of the book being a failure. That made me procrastinate. I ended up realizing that I was actually afraid of the book's success. Because with the success, it comes all of this that we're talking about, 7 weeks in Europe, and I still have a family and I still have a work to do. And having this conversation just landed in Madrid for client work, and it's 7:30 at night, and I'm enjoying this conversation with you. So when you accept really what's the consequence, that it's going to happen as a part of your desire, and in this case was the success of the book, things starting to move really quickly. Of course, it takes you time to do it, 3 years to be able to do it, and then a good agent and a good publisher. I really thank you. I'm grateful to HarperCollins and to Jim Levine for the work that they done. They took the book to a greater level. But it's this combination of things. Again, connect to your purpose, align with your purpose, be coherent with it, follow your energy, and then just set a good high bar on your desires and accept the consequences. And then, things happen. And now we have the book at home. I hope I'm answering your question.
Definitely, and then some. And it was, providing that personal insight into it, and because it's a labor of love, and it's
Yeah.
and agreed. I know, Harper. I don't have a relationship with the organization, but I know that they are one of the greats out there, as far as putting out amazing content that helps organizations and individuals improve their lives. And when we have that, that's a superpower. I mean, I don't want to diminish that. It's
Yeah.
the impact. The example. The 250 plus people you've spoke to. If even 10% of them apply, and it sounds like hopefully they carry that momentum.
Yeah.
They carry forward some of the things that they learned from you over these last few weeks. What that does is it has this humongous ripple effect on society and businesses, the products and services that they provide. And that's what a big consulting firm like you work with does. That's the whole
Yeah.
purpose, is we're going to see what you're doing, and we're going to give you some insights based on our experiences on how you can get to that level that you want to get to. And that's the whole idea behind it. And your
Yeah.
book definitely does that too, in a way that is quite frankly unique. I mean, of all the leadership books and business books out there, there's very few that touches on the energy side of things the ways that yours does. I mean, there's self-help books and energy books and
Yeah.
all of that kind of good stuff. Those, obviously, there's a ton of those, but to bring it into where the audience of leaders that are running these amazing organizations across our planet, they tie into that, the shift changes. And I actually had a conversation the other day with the former chief HR officer for LinkedIn. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that he talked about was in the job market. And specifically, a lot of organizations still, they're changing. But if you look at the average length of people working at an organization, it is much smaller than when you and I enter the workforce. It's, people are there 2 or 3 years. And in many organizations, they still have this job design, or maybe this backroom thinking that this person's going to be here for a decade or more. It's rare. Still exists. There's certain sectors where that still is the case, but in many cases that's not the case. So the shift is, for a lot of organizations, and this is where the energy comes in for leaders and all of that, is to say, okay, we know that every 2 or 3 years there's going to be some turnover in an organization in certain roles. So what we do is we basically make sure that those 2 or 3 years are an amazing experience for these people, because then they're going to carry that forward into whatever they do next. They may stay longer, or you
Yeah.
know you're going to be bringing in new talent and new ideas and new energy every couple of years. And the analogy in the conversation that we had was about college sports in the U.S. Yeah, every 3 or 4 years, you have a complete turnover of staff, your players,
Yeah.
completely different. And you see programs that are constantly successful, constantly fighting for the championship, constantly winning games, winning 80 or 90% of the games. And it's all different people. And you go, okay, what's that? It's a system, it's a methodology, it's the way they do things. And when leaders change the temperature of an organization and focus on protecting the energy, which then, of course, maximizes the productivity of people.
Yeah.
Nice side effect there, huh? It just creates this, more productive because people are operating in their sweet spot. And it's again, it gives me hope that all of those leaders were so engaged with you when they didn't have to. They could have easily said, "Oh, great, here's another book on how to do things better. I know better." We've seen it. You've encountered it, throughout your career. I've encountered it as well. It's like they say, "No, that's not going to work." Well, as Henry Ford said, if you say it's not going to work, you're right, because you already have in your mindset where it won't. But for them to be open-minded and a desire on how to make things better, it again gives me renewed hope on where things are going over the next few years. So, last question before we wrap up. In the book, were there any? And you kind of alluded to it, the time framing of writing it and all that stuff. But have there been any surprises to you as far as some of the reactions that you're getting from people that have read the book so far that you didn't anticipate you would get right away?
Yeah. There's a few surprises. So I guess the first one is, how were you able to get 20 CEOs who run very large public companies to approve sharing their stories in the book? And, half of them given permission to even declare their names, their titles, their companies. The other were anonymous, but all true stories, all which had to be authorized by the general counsels, by the chief communication officers before they could release not just the stories, but the compilation of things, to be able to weave a story that overall is able to make the how credible. So that was quite a surprise. I mean, if you look at the back of the book and the level of endorsements that are in there, I mean, you have Jane Fraser, CEO of Citigroup, Alan Joe, former CEO of Unilever, Alejandro Reynal, Four Seasons, and Dolph van der Brink, Heineken, and the list goes on. So that is quite surprising to many other people, and then be able to go through it. And then the next surprise is to be able to realize that it's actually very accessible, an abstract topic as human energy, making it accessible, pragmatical, and actionable, while you're able to then weave in these stories that make it credible. It's the first thing that I get from many people is like, how could this happen? Because to your point is you can look at these books in self-help shelves, but one that is able to create this gateway that allows for the the physical energy and the mental energy, emotional, and the being into one book that allows for this gateway to exist. That's kind of like the first one. The second one is there was a lot of surprise as to why are you adding spiritual energy into the mix? Like, can I get the physical, the mental, the emotional, but why spiritual? And which is quite provocative, because it has nothing to do with religion. And I declare it very clearly in the book. It's a journey for you to be able to connect to your original bliss, to the unconditional love that we are all born into. These energies, purpose, gratefulness, hope, faith in yourself, these are essential energies to be able to strengthen the heart, so that the heart becomes courageous because you have to fight many headwinds. If you, as a leader of your organization, are going to now start to change the culture of how people lead and how people start to show up vulnerably, and then vulnerability is strength rather than weakness, or that we could be able to show ourselves anytime, anywhere, at the home or at the workplace. These are very ingrained beliefs in the culture and in the people, in not just the organization, but sometimes in the country. You need courage to be able to be that kind of leader, be that pioneering leader. Spiritual energy is essential to be able to be a clear compass, to create the strength in the heart. So that was another big surprise for people to just to see that, and then to start to create space and permission for these kind of energies to be able to be part of the mix that allows for you to be a humane leader. You cannot be a humane leader if you cannot be and feel. When you just think and do, it makes you, in a way, a little bit crippled in the way that you are now demanded as a leader in a complex world rather than a complicated one. So those, I think, were a few that I've been delighted to be able to have conversations and bounce ideas and explain deeper, which gives me tons of energy. And it's been very well received so far.
Rightfully so. It's an amazing book, and I love how you said the spiritual side of things, and you're not talking about religion. You're talking about this universal energy that connects everyone and everything, and you connect to that, and you get more enlightened to what existence is and energy levels are. It's a game changer. So I highly recommend people obviously pick up the book, but as they dig into that, if that's something that comes up and you're like, wait a minute, I need to learn more about that side of things, there's a lot of great resources out there as well. So Ricardo, I've loved this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and all this amazing work you're doing?
You can find me at Ricardo Sunderland in Instagram. I think it's Ricardo Sunderland 11, and then in my LinkedIn profile, I'm starting to learn how to get out there in social media. Important to know that 100% of the proceeds of the book are getting donated through charity work. So I'm feeling very comfortable in sharing how I'm sharing about the book, because I'm not here to sell books. I'm here to create a movement in partnership with my firm, and then from that standpoint, hopefully the readers and your audience will enjoy it. But that's the way how to connect with me, and looking forward to have an engaging dialogue in the social networks, I guess.
There you go. I'll definitely have that information in the show notes, and kudos to you for basically donating all the proceeds to charitable effects. That does not surprise me about you. So I'm going to get this over to my editor right away, and I really appreciate you having the time in your travels to be able to speak with us today. So thanks so much for your time today, Ricardo.
Thank you for your time, Michael, and I really appreciate your audience for also taking the time to hear me out.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.